Welcome to the Live Loving live stream with John Davis. Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the Live Loving live stream on this, the 59th anniversary of my natal day. This is my birthday song. It isn't very long. Anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day today. I'm having a phenomenal day. I've been lounging around doing very little, I did make a little bit of video today, but other than that, I've spent most of the day off. I'm taking all of tomorrow off so that I can let my voice rest from this crazy week I've had. And I'm looking forward to talking with you guys tonight and looking forward to seeing where this conversation goes. I'm very excited to see you, and thank you all for the birthday wishes. They mean a lot. I'm kind of enjoying my day, although I do think it's a little odd that, you guys created a 3-day weekend for my birthday. I think that's just a little much. I think you got to scale it back some. Anyway, so what questions do you guys want to get into tonight? I know that you're probably want to hear about all my crazy years of 59 years on this earth and all that. Let's talk about what's most important to you at this moment, because that to me is what would make my birthday great. Happy Choose Life Day. That's funny. That's funny. Coming from you, that's very, very funny. Actually, I saw one earlier on, the very first thing, Michaela, and thank you for the happy birthday wish. In fact, do I have any information regarding how to release cellular memory and limiting beliefs? Please share. Well, the first belief I want you to release is the belief in cellular memory, because all empirical evidence is found in this illusion of belief that surrounds us. In other words, everything you're looking at is nothing but pure atomic energy in motion. And that atomic energy in motion is the image of the source. It's the image of God. We are created in God's image. And so when a scientist is looking for something, he has a theory. That theory is his belief. And that belief is shown to him is where this concept of cells and cellular all comes into play. In reality, it's all belief, and the belief is the creation of your experience. What you're actually talking about here is subconscious belief. It's the things that are coming up in your life that seem to be out of your control. 85 to 90% of your day, you're in your subconscious mind. And so it's a matter of coming to realize what your subconscious mind is actually believing. And when you come to the space of realizing what you're actually believing about the only moment you live, which is your present moment, when you come to realize that you're focusing on cellular memory as opposed to joyfully living or healthily moving forward, or all the things that the limiting beliefs. I am unlimited. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was younger, I was getting ready to go to a Renaissance festival in Georgia. And I've told this story before, but I'm going to do the shortened version of it. I had a van that needed a motor and a transmission, and my father had a van that had a great body. His body of his van was great, and I had a van with a bad body and a good engine and transmission. Had never done anything like swapping engines before. And long story short, I ended up swapping engine, transmission, and steering columns, and then drove that van to Georgia, just because I didn't get into the belief that I couldn't, and that my brother-in-law also believed that I could. His best advice he gave me was, get started and call me if you have a problem. And the more I just stayed with the present moment, doing the things I needed to do in alignment, I ended up driving that van to Georgia the following week. And my sister and her husband drove that van for a couple of years after that. That van ended up being a pretty decent van for a while there. But it came down to the concept of am I not someone who can do that, or am I someone who can do that? It comes back to, what do you believe about your I am moment, your present moment? And so the concept of cellular memory is a belief. And if you believe that something in your cells is going to repeat and do the same, then what's going to happen is you're going to have that repeating action again. And when it comes down to limiting beliefs, though, that is a limiting belief. Cellular memory is a limiting belief, the belief in that cellular memory. So it's a matter of getting very present, getting rid of those words like want, need, hope, try, wish, and can't, and just literally coming to the space of, I am joyfully creating a new life, a new experience. And when you shift into that joyfully creating that new life and that new creation, you come to realize that you get to create all of your memories, every one of them, and that's really important. So let me jump over to the. That was me talking a lot. So let me jump over to see what I'm hearing. I'm hearing a lot of things popping up. Well, thank you, and happy anniversary, Amanda, as well. 59 years. I'm such a youngster. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Jumping up here to see what I've missed. I'm living love. How much belief should we put into a psychic reading which does not sync with our plans? Understand that every psychic that you will ever have, and anyone, every person you ever talk to, including me, including anybody, they're coming through their own filter, their own belief. But you are the discernment. You are the one. If it doesn't feel right to you, don't follow it. I had one lady one time who the first time she saw me, she's like, "Oh my God, you're going to do big things with Kenny Loggins." And maybe I will in some distant future or something, but it didn't happen in this life, and it didn't feel right when she said it. It felt kind of odd when she said it, and it hasn't happened, right? But what psychics read is potential, and you get to choose in every moment of your life. They'll say, well, this is where, if things are going this way right now, and if they stay going this way, this is what's going to happen. And that's from their perspective. But you get to choose. And if they say something that does not fit, you do not have to believe it. There is no fate or destiny. They can't read something that it's going to happen. Joshua himself said, be here today, tomorrow will take care of itself. The closer you are to here and the more you are in the present, the more you bring in a different experience, and tomorrow takes care of itself because you're bringing it in. You're creating it. And so when you talk to anybody outside of yourself, remember, you are the final judge. You are the one who gets to say, this is right for me or this is wrong for me. And it's a matter of you staying in that space of realizing that it's your life, not theirs. So jumping back over, I think it was Chitra. Thank you for that, Chitra. That was great. Hi, John. I can't sleep, so I've caught you live. Happy birthday. Oh, well, happy birthday to you, Julie. Where are you, Julie, that you should be sleeping now? I'd be curious to know. You are quite welcome, Amanda. I went to Miami last week to see my stepdaughter and her hubby, very open people. While I was listening to him tell me a story, my deceased brother appeared and the guy's face disappeared. Weird. I have had that exact same experience. I've actually had Jeshua's face appear over other people's faces. And it's interesting. My assessment is that I'm getting information, and that's the image that I'm seeing, right? And then I think back to Mother Teresa when they said, what does she do every day? She says, every day I go out in the streets and I look in the face of Jesus and all of his distressing masks. So understanding that oneness of the source, and she sees Jesus. And so to me, it made perfect sense. Jumping over again. Bobo, I missed you too, Bobo. Bridget, good to see you back again. It was my bro's birthday. It's a birthday day. My cousins today. My nephew's twins are today. Tamara Zoner's daughter is today. I've met multiple people with today as their birthday, and I just think it's wonderful. May every step into your near be filled with beauty, truth, and goodness. Well, thank you very much, Human Potential. Thank you for the 59th birthday. I was talking to someone just the other day, and they're talking about their age, and they were I forget how old they were, but I reminded them that William Shatner is 92 years old and has 2 television shows on the air right now. So 59 is, yes, very young in my opinion. So I'm very, very excited to be so young. Exactly that. Jumping down. Really wanting to stay connected to the Father, the source, but pain can be distracting. How do you stay connected to the source or heal? That's a good question, but the question is, do you believe that you can be in control of your pain? Or do you believe you are at mercy of your pain? Because when I was lying in the hospital bed at 22 with a broken back, I chose not to be at the mercy of my pain. And I chose to get out of that bed. And it really comes down to you choosing to say, I am. I am healed. I am. And I have seen healing people who take that faith and heal it, almost instantaneously. And I have seen people who've taken weeks and months, but through their belief in their present moment, they heal. It's a matter of recognizing what you're believing and changing the belief. And if you say, well, I am in pain, you're actually asking for more pain. So don't focus on the pain. Focus on right now I feel this. I am feeling better. I am coming to perfect health. Thank you, God, for the perfect health I am receiving. Keep redirecting those beliefs back so that the pain is just a symptom of belief. And if you can change the belief, you can change the symptom. I hope that answers your question. It really does come down to getting very present and believing that you're being healed, because that is the key. SM, which Renaissance festival are you talking about? I've been to so many. Where are you? Are you in Georgia? I did Georgia for many years. Do you remember if any of the women in your past life group wore a veil? All of them wore a veil sometimes. They were less adherent to that rule when we were alone. I actually have a memory of Mary Magdalene without a veil. But you really have to think of that time period a lot like Afghanistan right now. Women were very much subjugated in that time period. And in public, to be without a veil would have been a very bad thing. But Joshua didn't care about those sort of things. He thought they were of the constructs of religion and man. And so they in our group, some would even wear veils in the group because they were afraid. But for the most part, they always wore veils when they're out in public. That makes sense. What do I think of AI and how it will affect the future? Well, first of all, I'm not a prophet, and I don't do prophecy. AI to me is an interesting toy. I think that that it will never actually outgrow our own creativity, and I have no fear of it becoming a Terminator experience, Skynet, and all that. It's just to me, it's a computer construct or toy. Casey Neistat just did a video recently about he went into an AI and he typed in, "Write me a Casey Neistat style YouTube video vlog," is what he wrote, vlog, and it wrote him a script. And he went out into the streets and he did the exactly what the AI said. It was terrible. It was like Casey Neistat trying to give a tour of Manhattan, and it was like all this historical reference to this and that and everything. It's just, I don't get into the fear or anxiety of anything like that, because I think if we put fear and anxiety into any of that, we're going to end up creating it. So I just tend to not go that way. Let's see what we got here. I'm a baby in front of William Shatner. That's exactly right. Exactly right. Is time speeding up? Seems like our intense, exciting times. Actually, what's happening is love is winning, and the loud people, the people who are losing, or the people who are succumbing to their fears, are making things seem frantic or crazy. But in reality, love is winning, and that's why they're trying to do all these things. Socrates said, "When the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser." Well, in reality, we're winning, and I can see that when I talk to people every day, every week, when I'm doing my private sessions. I see where the humanity is at a very much different place than it was 20 years ago. It's in a much better place than it was 20 years ago. And when I see these people getting loud, and I also watch that for every one of those that gets loud, there's 1,000 who's telling them that no, we don't think that way. And so, even the guy from the guy with the eye patch from January 6th just got 18 years in prison. He wasn't even at January 6th, according to what his lawyers were saying. So even that guy who got loud is now being knocked down. So moving over. India. Oh, Siddharth, how are you? Siddharth, Siddharth, you sent me an email, didn't you? I need to send you that link because it's been a crazy week. I'll make sure I do send that to you. Present moment, only moment, present moment, wonderful moment. I completely agree with you on that statement. I love that. That's why they call it the present, because it's a present. Thank you. Yes, good answer. Have I ever seen Jeshua's mother in a past life? Yes, I have. And I have a distinct memory of her on her knees beside me at the cross. I have a distinct memory of her in Turkey and in Galilee. So yeah, I do have memories of her. And in my regression, she came in and literally said to me, "Because you took care of me then, I'm taking care of you now," which I thought was just lovely. Thank you for the happy birthday, Sarah. Hi, Sarah. I had to pick up my car, but I'm late. You're just in time. You're just in time. I don't fear AI or the robots taking over, although that might be a world I would incarnate in just because of Terminator experience since I'm an 80s kid. Yeah, there you go. There you go. Skynet. I love that movie. And I just heard James Cameron announce at some conference the other day that he wants to do a Terminator reboot from the AI perspective, but he wants to wait to see what happens with AI over the next couple of years. So to see what he can write. Mahalo. Yes, nice. The present moment is a present. Yes, it is. So yeah, it's interesting that we live in a time where there's so many people who are afraid, but there are so many people who are willing to step up and just not succumb to it. And you see it every day. The only thing is, the negative stuff gets the press. The negative stuff gets the press. But you have to remember that and I've told this long time ago on a live stream, I said this. If I worked in Cleveland and I live in Akron, it's about a 25-mile drive up and 25-mile drive back. And if I lived up there and commuted up from here to there every day, I might pass 1,000 cars on the road. And every day or every other day, I might see a car on the side of the road that had an accident. Not every day, probably, but let's just say every day. So every day, a car is on the side of the road with the accident. I turn on my radio, I'm going to hear, "There's an accident here. Don't go here, there's an accident there. It's slowing down traffic, there's an accident here. Tonight on the news, there was an accident there. Did you see that? There was an accident there." What should be on the news is, "Hey guys, 999 cars made it to their destination without a single problem." Boy, that's miraculous, isn't it? That's the world we live in. It's predominantly positive. It's 99% predominantly positive. But if we focus on the 1% of negative, then we will feel and live the negative. But if you live a loving life and you surround yourself with love and you give love, then you get love in return. It's like when I traveled to Egypt and everyone treated me like I was a prince and like I was a family member. And I ran into the other guy who everybody wanted to fight him because he was a jerk, right? He believed that people wanted to fight him. He believed that it was a terrible place. His belief was because he was Christian and they were Muslim, they wanted to fight him. I had beautiful conversations with wonderful Muslim people because I didn't care about their religion. I didn't care about my religion. I just liked them I just gave them love as the person they were, as the human they were. And that to me is the key to our life. Joshua said, I leave you one commandment, love one another. It's that simple. In the Gnostic text, the Acts of John, John's an old man in Turkey. They ask him to come to the front of the room and speak because he was the last one who saw Joshua. He walks up to the front of the room and he says, love one another. And then he turns and walks back to his seat. And they say, tell us more. Tell us the teaching. Tell us more. And he turns around and says, I can tell you no more until you learn this. But the big secret of it all is when you learn that, you get all the answers. You get the understanding of that if you are giving love, you're receiving love. If you're giving fear, you're receiving things to be fearful for. It's a matter of being in that space of living that loving life. And that is the answer. And, when I started living that way is when I started having all of the big light show spiritual experiences that everyone talks about having. It wasn't because of a method or a modality or a technique. It was because I was living loving life and just believing I could. And that's how it started to happen. Let me jump over here. I'm going to sneeze, though. I don't know why I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. You guys know what the original origins of saying bless you to someone is who sneezes? In medieval times, they used to think that when you sneezed, you opened your soul to the devil. And when you sneeze, they'd say, the original phrase was, may God bless you and the devil miss you. So even today, we say bless you to someone. It's a medieval Christian belief that the devil could get into their bodies. That's why we say bless you. Just thought I'd share that. Oh, and then Marcy just said it. Thank you, Marcy. I appreciate the sentiment. Question about John the Beloved. I know a lot of apostles had honorable death. How did John the Beloved happen? A lot of apostles seem to be hunted down bad times. You know what, SM? Love this question. John is the only one who died of old age. He died of old age in Ephesus, Turkey. And it goes back to Book of John. He says, Joshua says, if I want him to stay until I come, what's that to you? I'm talking to you. And then John died of old age. So he stayed the rest of his life and did not have a traumatic death or hunted down and crucified upside down and jumped off cliffs and all those things. John lived to old age and kept spreading the word. So I love that question. My Oma used to invite everyone into the coffee and sit and share from the Bible and the Quran. I love that. I got the Gita, the Bible, the Quran, Course in Miracles, Shakespeare, Bartlett's quotes, and The Second Coming of Christ by Yogananda. And if you could see that way, you'd see a wall of books. And I share from all of them whenever I can, because I think that God is too big to be encompassed by any one religion, school, or thought. And so you find the ones that are totally in line with love, and that you're talking God. So that's my thought on that. Indian gurus could send us to the mountains for 20 years to meditate to get into the present moment. Any shortcuts, John? Yeah, start paying attention to when you're not. In this present moment, I am wanting. It means I'm not really creating in the present. I am here. Most of the time, you're sitting here in this moment, you're going, I wonder what my plan is for tomorrow. Well, that means you're in tomorrow. Oh my God, my dad was so bad to me. You're in yesterday. Be right here, right now. And when something comes up that says wanting, needing, hoping, trying, wishing, that's a past belief that says you're not going to, or you can't. I'm creating, I'm enjoying, I'm breathing, I'm here, I am loving. Earlier today, I ate ice cream and cake. I am eating ice cream and cake. It was good. But it's the practices of going off and meditating for all that time. My first Kundalini rising, I was at a tent with a guy who was trying to have a Kundalini rising for over 20 years. I had one. He's never had one still. The difference was he was trying. He was doing the techniques. He wasn't going internal into himself. It's just in the room you're in right now, just stop. Stop looking at me. Just look around the room and just notice the experience around you. Now, in this moment, I want you to think, what am I grateful for? In this moment, what in this moment am I truly grateful that I can experience? Like, I'm sitting in this room right now, and I love all this technical stuff around me. I think it's cool. All these cameras and lights and green screens and teleprompters and iPads. And I just appreciate, and I'm so grateful for the fact that I can do it, right? I appreciate the fact that I can sit here and I can talk to you anywhere in the world and share my truth. I'm so grateful for that, right? That's being present. But when you sit here in the moment, you're trying to do something, or you're wanting to do something, or you can't do something because of, those are the moments that are not present. And you can come to this moment, you start to appreciate this moment for what it is, and what you have, and what you're creating. Then you start to realize that you already are present. When you release the past, forget the future. Future is a place to set goals, yes. I want to do this, but right here, right now, I am doing this. Now, it can be in alignment with that. But if you're constantly saying, I want that, you're putting it off for some time that you'll never get to. You have to be present. I hope that answers your question. I'm jumping back over. I don't believe in the devil when I sneeze either. I don't believe in the devil ever. I believe the whole concept of the devil is exactly what the word translates to. Satanos means temptation. And we get tempted by things of the world that take us away from love. And that's what I believe the devil is our own temptations. Everyone does need love, Amanda. You are absolutely right. And you can find love in most religions. And you can usually find loving people in most religions. But there are some who will be judgmental and harsh and mean because they're afraid of not being right. And they've limited themselves to the possibility, the potential. My favorite religious quote that I think I've ever heard is the Dalai Lama, when he said, "My religion is simple, my religion is kindness." And I think that if you can live in that sort of mindset and just be kind, I think you'll be amazed at how your world itself will change and be surrounded by kindness. Ephesus is supposedly where Troy is. Interesting. I did not know that. Thank you for giving my daughter a free reading. She won this, and when you reach Oh, wonderful, lovely, Maureen. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm so happy. She was a lovely. I believe she's a musician. She was a lovely person. I like to see her. She looked like possibility. Something might have shaken her at some point in her life, but I think she's gonna rock it now. And she's gonna follow the song. Who do I think built the pyramids? I don't know. The interesting thing about the pyramids is I tend to believe what the real archaeologists think about the pyramids, that they're not a product of Khufu, that they are actually much, much older. Having stood there next to the Sphinx and seen the water damage on the body and the pristine head, I tend to think that the water damage that the archaeologists say are from much older time period is probably accurate. Edgar Casey said that they were built in 10,500 BC. And what's really interesting is the archaeoastronomers say that is the exact date when they would have lined up with when the pyramids would have lined up on Giza would have lined up with Orion. So, do I know who built them? No, but I believe that the potential of pre civilizations is possible. I believe in, when they find a hammer inside of a rock, and they find an aluminum piece that looks like a landing something mixed in with the bones of a woolly mammoth. I just think that we aren't the first culture to live on this planet. And I just think that civilizations have probably come and gone many times, but I don't. And the one thing that's going to last are the rocks, which is what the pyramids are. They're very well stacked rocks. So that's really my thought about it. Moving on. I'm amazed it's this easy. You know what? Being what you said, I'm amazed that it's this easy. Being beyond the veil, being before the veil. In my regression, it literally says it's so simple, we have a hard time comprehending it. And then I it's that story I tell of, trying to remember the actor's name, and I'm like, I can't remember his name. And then I realized I was saying I can't. I changed it to I am. I said, I am remembering Sean Penn. And it was just literally that shift from I can't to I am, which brought the information straight into my head because I changed the belief about the information. And that's how simple the world is. That's how simple it all is. It's a matter of coming back to that space of realizing that we are the creators simply through our belief, or our product of belief. What are your thoughts on the Dalai Lama taking advantage of the boy who asked him to give him a hug? How do we forgive such a figurehead for falling? I honestly don't know what that situation is, so I have no opinion on it. I maybe I don't know. I've never even heard of the situation, so I don't know. Do I remember rot? I'm not sure I know what rot is. WROT. Oh, disregard. That's okay. I didn't read down far enough. Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much. I'm glad to see things are changing for you. Being before the veil. I don't know what's your real name, or do you not want to share? If you don't want to share, it's fine. He asked the boy to suck his tongue. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just hearing this from you, so I haven't heard anything more about it. So I don't know what the context of any of that is. So I couldn't give you a comment based on just the information you're giving me. I'd have to see other stuff because that wouldn't be fair, and that would be how all kinds of terrible things are said that might not be valid or might be totally valid. But I'm not going to be someone who perpetuates something that I don't know anything about. Thank you, David Bruce, David. You know what the name David means? I'm sure you do. Tell me what the name David means, David. I know what I've heard. Huge red flag. I'll have to look it up and see what it says. But you have to remember, people like the Dalai Lama and me, and not that I'm saying I'm going to ever ask a child to let me suck his tongue, right? Everybody's human, and putting somebody on a pedestal, which is what he did not want. He did not want to be put on a pedestal, right? it always comes down to us. And when someone gets into a high power, a lot of times they they kind of lose it because they get lost. I knew a reader one time who was an exceptionally talented reader, and when she had some big things happen in her life, she went off the deep end, and her ego got whacked out of control, and it became a really big bad experience. And it really comes down to realizing that everybody, you, me, everybody, you know, we have to be present and be loving, and not start to listen to our own press. God forbid I ever let anybody think that I'm anything more than John Davis. That's why it's John of New, not John of Old, right? It's because I'm just a guy who's speaking my truth, and I never want anybody to believe it unless something rings true for them. Because I think it'd be wrong. But I think we all need to realize that everybody is equal and the same, and some people get lost. Some people do get lost. Um, ah. Well, the name David, I have recently just heard the name David means beloved. Um, and son of David means the son of beloved. And so I just think the word David, and I'm John Davis, John, son of David. So to me, it's just interesting. Um, Amanda, you need to be talking to David because he's the before the veil guy. I'm sure you could share some good stories that he would be interested in hearing. I'm sure. There's a lot of people who I've met who've come here who feel really out of place, and I think it's because humanity is shifting. And they come here and they're still more connected to what the other side feels like, and this place doesn't feel that way. And so they come here and they feel like this doesn't fit, and they never feel right. And they're highly empathic, and they're just in this place that just doesn't. It's uncomfortable. And I was one of them. That was exactly who I was. And it's a very interesting, an interesting thing to go through, and especially if you remember, you know, known the Source since 5 years old and have visions of your birth. You might find some really interesting stuff in some of David's stuff, actually. I am. I will. I'll look it up. I'm not going to get on a soapbox about it because of the fact that I won't focus on the negative. Um, I won't continue to spread my dislike of something like that. Instead, I will focus on the child, coming out of it balanced and loved, as opposed to what he did. I'll focus on the well-being of the child. And so, because I don't think perpetuating the wrong is the right thing to do. But I will definitely look it up to see what happened. Why did he need to come as little children? Simple. Reminds me that we need to come as little children. Simple. You must become as a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. Right in the Bible. Any thoughts on our inner child relationship expanding our consciousness? I think that is way overthought. I think that when Jeshua said, you must become as a child, I think that what he's saying is set down your beliefs, set down your dogmas, set down your rituals, set down your concepts, come back to that clean slate that knows nothing of physical experience or other people's thoughts. And come back to that clear slate, because that's where you were when you got here. And when you got here, you had just come from the other side. And when you go back to the other side, your slate will be clear again. And so it's a matter of realizing that dealing with inner child, that's just dealing with your subconscious mind. This actually goes back to the question I responded to earlier about cellular memory. It's the same sort of thing. That inner child is psychology. That's the science talking about this inner child that you have to cope with. It literally comes down to release, drop the anchors of belief, drop the anchors of religion, drop the anchors of concept, drop the anchors of being a victim, drop the anchors of what you should do, drop the anchors of all of the things that are not you here in the present without any of those things. And those things, when you drop those things, you come back to a space, and that space has no anxiety. It has no stress. It has no fear. And when you don't feel that lack of anxiety, that lack of stress, that lack of fear, that's when you're back into those subconscious beliefs. And you go, no, no, no. More of this, please. You come back to that space. And that space right there is the space of oneness with God. Because no fear can exist in pure love, and God is love. And so when you let go of your fears, which is the primal reaction, we hold air in our bodies when we're afraid. Let go of that air and come back to just feeling good. You're tapping into the breath of God. And that's really the key to this all. All the psychological comments of inner child and the past trauma and the victimhood, and we've got to go back and clear out this, that, and the other thing. I think one of the most damaging methods of science is psychology, because I think they just spend all their time focusing on the bad things that have happened in life rather than releasing the bad things, which is letting them go and creating something new. And I think people will spend years and years and years in their past, but not be present because they're always in their past. And they're trudging up all these things from their past. But they've got to get very present to move forward. Larry, welcome, welcome, welcome. Larry, that's a very esoteric question. Is a bridge to truth through sharing love? We both have truths. Are mine the same as yours? Stealing from Jesus Christ Superstar. I often say that I'm speaking about my truth, and if my truth isn't your truth, then don't follow it, because your truth, we're each one of us is on our own personal spiritual journey. And we must find our own ways. And so if someone's coming along telling you that this is the truth and you have to follow it, which I'm not doing, I'm just sharing my truth. If someone's coming along and saying, this is the truth and you have to follow it, the word have to, then it's not the truth. Because you are one with God and you are the creator of your experience, and the experience that you're experiencing is the belief that you're putting into it. Joshua said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He meant his way, his truth, and his life. But we were looking at him as this miraculous being, or a miraculous person who was so loving you could feel his presence. And so we were like, we want to be like him because his truth rang true to us. And it really comes down to realizing that, for me personally, I believe that all of them come back to love in some form. But it really depends on what you believe. Jumping back over here. Great. Perfect. There are people without the fearing part of the brain. Yeah, absolutely. The question is, there are people without the fearing part of their brain. Would it be just the beliefs holding them back from source consciousness? Source / consciousness / God / yada yada is never a way. It's the beliefs that are the hindrance to us experiencing it. So if they aren't believing they're connected, of course not, right? And so the concept of they have no fear in that part of their brain, I would have to question that, because that's a belief in some empirical evidence, and I'm not sure that we could ever prove that to be true. But I believe that believing they're disconnected is absolutely not going to allow them to see a connection because their belief is their experience. Hello, Layla, Life My Way. Love that one. What exactly is the third eye? I know things, and I don't know how I know them. Is that a 3D thing or what? I did have a near-death experience, and that's when it started. Okay, Becky, we're going to get into this. Okay. 3D, 4D, 3M. I think it's all a 3M thing. You know what the 3M thing is? Sticky. 3D, 4D, 5D. That's just the next path, the next New Age path to follow down. In reality, what's happening is you had a glimpse of the other side because you were able to set some things down for a bit. Your near-death experience, you crossed the veil, right? You crossed the veil, so now you know that your veil is thinner because you've crossed it. You've had that experience, and having that experience, you come back with a veil a little thinner. And I will often be talking to someone, and I'll use a word that I've never used in my life. And when I look it up, it's the exact perfect word for that exact perfect moment. And that to me is information coming from the oneness of God. It's not about 3D, 4D, or any of that stuff, because that's all. A lot of that is Dolores Cannon stuff, but it's all New Age concepts. It's all simpler. It's all. Sufism says it the best. It says. God is on one side of a veil, and we're on the other side of the veil, and our life is a struggle against the veil, and the veil is our fear. So we go through this process of releasing the things that make us afraid of not achieving. We're afraid of not creating. We're afraid of not being loved. We're afraid of, all kinds of things. We're afraid of going to hell if you believe in Christianity, right? And when you have a near-death experience, you bypass those beliefs and touch the other side. And suddenly you come back, you're like, whoa, what was that? A lot of people go over and they come back and their religion changes because they learn something new on the other side. And when you come back from a near-death experience, you literally have made the veil thinner. So be grateful for it. Actually, if I were you, I would start automatic writing. And I would start really tapping into it and honing the skill. Because the more you hone the skill, the better you get at it. And you can, think of someone, write their name on a sheet of paper, and just write something down for them, right? Usually get their permission because it's kind of invasive to tap into someone without their permission. But, see what you get. Or think about, what's happening tomorrow, or what other things are coming up. Now, like I said, it's coming through your filter, and you're reading the potential of moment, right? And write stuff down. If you start to see patterns emerging, then your faith will grow. Trust is developed by results over time. So the more you hone that skill, the more that skill will be shown to you. And so I wouldn't think about it as a 3D or 4D or a 5D thing. I would think of it as a 3M thing. It's very sticky. Well, hello, Cheryl, Healing Spirit. I'm over my own lips tonight for some reason. Welcome. Oh, well, thank you so much for that. It's you're incredible the way you teach love. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. What are your thoughts on diet and dry fasting? My thoughts on diet in general go exactly the same way Joshua thought about it, which is it doesn't matter what goes in your mouth. It only matters what comes out of your mouth. He actually said, I would be more worried about what comes out of your mouth than what goes in. He ate lamb. He ate anything. He ate everything. He ate figs on the side of the road. He ate lamb. He ate fish. He ate everything. Right? Dry fasting. When I do my 40-day fast every year, I do water fasting. I've never done dry fasting. I don't think I would enjoy trying to dry fast. I do water fasting, and it works very well for me, and I enjoy that process. But I don't have any, and I don't understand this. I don't do my fast for spiritual reasons at all. I do that fast because I feel better when I do it. I feel like I've cleaned out all the pizza that I ate all year, and I've cleaned out my intestines and gave my intestines a rest. It's not about a spiritual encounter. And I don't have big spiritual experiences during my fast. So I wouldn't say there's a need to fast. And as far as dietary concerns, the most vehement people, besides Christians who've come at me, have been vegans. They get really mad at me for saying Jesus isn't a vegan. And I say Jesus because they're coming at it from a Jesus perspective rather than a Jesuit perspective. They're coming at it from a Christian perspective. But the Bible itself says he ate lamb and fish. And if you follow the Old Testament, Leviticus has a list of all the different animals to eat. So, very interesting. That sneeze is still affecting me. Let me jump over. The third eye. So the third eye to me is not a thing in the body. The third eye to me is that knowingness, that when I'm talking to someone and I get a picture in my head and it just matches what's to be said in that moment. I had a woman who I was doing a reading for who, prior to the reading, I saw this blonde-haired woman riding horseback, bareback, in a field with her hands out to her side, riding like she was free. And I wrote all that down. And she was a former circus bareback rider. And she had long blonde hair. And so that picture that popped into my head was that communication. The third eye, to me, is nothing more than the connection of the oneness or the information. Casey would have called it the Akashic Records. I just call it the oneness of God. It's setting down the veil and getting more information. But I think when we start to label things and to do all those things, we're actually losing the concept of being directly connected, and we're trying to explain things that don't need explaining. It's just a matter of releasing and just being with. And it sounds so strange and esoteric and weird, but that's been my experience. The more I just let go, the more clear I seem to become. And I'm very, very happy with the way my life has gone and is going. And I'm really excited about the way my future will unfold because I know that I'm creating. And so to me, it comes down to when that stuff comes through into my thoughts, my words, my deeds, my hearing, audio, clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance. I think that's all just that opening through for the oneness of God. And I think all of it's called the third eye, something that's seeing outside of the physical. Beautiful. Channeling of in the moment, the source give a release of words like prophesying. What is your thoughts on premonitions? I said this earlier, Amanda. You're asking about premonitions. Every person who is reading the future is reading a potential of the moment. But they're also bringing it through their own filter. I'll give you a really good example. On YouTube, there's a channel which I don't promote, but it's a remote viewing channel. And one guy was really good, and he actually drew a picture of January 6th, 2 months before January 6th happened. And then the guy who was the expert on the show, he said, well, obviously we know this third world country is going to blah, blah. And he had this whole story that he had created because that was his belief. His belief was this was a third world country and everything else. So everybody who's reading anything is bringing something through their belief. And it really comes down to understanding that when someone's giving premonitions, sometimes they're right. Sometimes they're wrong. But what they're reading is the potential. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. And if they're giving it to you early, then it can be changed. And that's the thing that we need to remember. Animal communication is a great way to do it. My friend Holly does some of that when she does her animal Reiki sessions. Well, thank you, Nova Star. This is an amazing. Oh well, thank you. I'm glad glad you're finding it to be an amazingly powerful live, David. Would the third eye be the pineal gland? I kind of answered that already. I think delineating it out as a gland, I wouldn't go there because I don't. I think the gland itself is part of the physical illusion of belief. So I think it's people look for it and they believe it is, so you start to see that. But I don't think that's the reality. I think it's the belief. Oh my gosh, Gene Love, thank you. I love that. I actually could feel that I was changing, or was it Jay was changing today while I was helping a friend with a problem. It felt good, and that's really that's it. When you are out there loving one another, is when you know you're doing good. When you're feeling that good, and you do it out of love, and that's it. I mean, you said it perfectly just then, Gene. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, thank you, Dana, for the happy birthday. Um, Welcome, Dana. Great answers. Thank you. I meant to say I was channeling. Oh, oh. Well, okay. Well, good. I believe that too, as I've had experiences where I've said things at the right exact time. I had one guy, I overheard him tell someone else. He says, "I was having a tough time today, but I came to John, and sometimes talking to John is like talking to God." Because sometimes I just open up and whatever comes through, comes through. And I think it's the same for all of us. I think we all are the person who sometimes says the right thing at the right time. And I think we're all channeling. I think we're all bringing the source through. And sometimes we get that clarity that they don't have, and we can deliver it in a moment that they'll accept it. And that's beautiful. Amanda, I'm not sure what you're talking about with the bubbling up and have to release it, the feeling heating as it connecting to the source while releasing. I don't fully understand that comment. Such a shift in the air lately. So, Lucky, do you believe that the shift is a good thing or a bad thing? Well, I got pretty specific on your question. I hope that answered your question. I am. And Sherilyn, I would like to address that exact comment right there. Prophecies and revelations, they're not prophecies. John of old wrote Revelations, and John of old was sending a letter to the churches to warn them of the oncoming onslaught of Nero. And Bible scholars in the past 10, 15 years have come out and said the exact same thing because the 666 is Judaic numerology for Nero. And they recently, in the past 5 years, validated that by finding a different text, and the number was not 666, it was 363. But in that numerology, that also spelled Nero. So it came down to all of that being an actual warning. The reason it was written in code, and I've done videos on this, the reason it was written in code is because that message had to be carried. And if they were stopped on the road by Roman soldiers and searched and found a letter that said Nero's coming, that person would have been killed on the spot for carrying that sort of message. So everything was written in code so that no one could actually decipher it. There is no apocalypse coming. Armageddon, the word Armageddon, actually means hill of Megiddo. It's Har Megiddo. And when you're in Jerusalem, or in Israel, I mean, out near Bethlehem and Nazareth, out in that part of the world, there's a valley of Megiddo, and the hill on the side of that is the hill of Megiddo. I've actually stood on Har Megiddo, or Armageddon, and it was just, that's where they thought that Nero's troops were going to come through over the hill of Megiddo, and so they had a whole story around it, but it was all coded messages to warn of the oncoming onslaught of Nero, and so it really wasn't a prophecy at all. It was a warning of a contemporary warning of something that was potentially going to happen. Yeah, Amanda, I understand that things just keep coming. I had dreams that come through, and I have to call people and tell them about the dreams. And sometimes I'll just call my sister and say, "Remember this dream," just so you know that I've said it, just in case something happens, so that we have it kind of documented to somebody else. Um, Kind of bad concerning politics. Sports teams mocking Christ, but good in the way the people. So so lucky CBD life, mocking Christ. I don't believe Jeshua was Christ. I don't believe he believed in a Christ, a Messiah, or a Savior. So my question to you is: do you believe that he was more than a man? Because that's where a lot of that might come from. Um, and all of the politics and all of the stuff, that's all, as Socrates would say, when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. That's just the people who are losing getting loud. So I wouldn't get too wrapped into the negative and just choose to create the positive, so the positive can be surrounded in your life. Rare gem. Well, thank you very much, Rare Gem. Thank you. Oh, you're quite welcome, Sherilyn. I hope that answered your question. If God is in the present, how much do prophecies actually matter? Correct. If God is in the prophecies, don't really matter, because there is no fate or destiny. There is free will always, and we get to create, but our creations are in motion. To give you an example, when I decided I wanted to have world travel, I said, "Thank you, God, for the world travel I'm receiving." And the next day, some people from the USO asked me to do USO shows, and 2 days later, 9/11 happened. Now, did I create 9/11? Nope. Did I create the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan? Nope. It was already in motion, and my creation lined into what was already in motion. So things are in motion at every moment of every day because we all have belief. But the question is it predominantly negative or is it predominantly positive? And I'm going to tell you it's predominantly positive, because the people who are getting negative are really getting hit back with people who are going, no, we're not doing that. And it just sounds bad because the negative gets better press, literally. Uh, Somebody asked me today about why Peter was the first pope. um, and it's because of Constantine. Peter was the apostle who went and preached in Rome. And then when Constantine decided that Rome was going to be the seat of the Christian church, Peter had to be the leader. And so it was created that Peter was the one that Jeshua said the rock will be built upon. But if you go in the Gnostic text, he says, "Go to my brother James, James the Just." So the whole concept of Peter being the first pope and all that stuff is a Roman construct to create Christianity into Rome itself, so that Rome could be the seat of power of Christianity. So it's a very interesting concept. And happy birthday to you, lucky CBD life. and 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 your mom, I'm sure, even though she's not here now, I'm sure she's celebrating it with you anyway. In my regression, actually, it was interesting, Becky, that question. In my regression, did I recall writing Revelations? Um, I do not recall writing Revelations. I recall reciting something to someone who was writing something down, because John, I don't believe, ever wrote anything. But like Revelations, as I said, was a letter of warning about Nero's onslaughts. And so he was basically dictating a letter. John was a fisherman. He didn't have knowledge or skills in writing. He wasn't a scholar. He wasn't a scribe. He was a fisherman. And so that wasn't what he did. And even the New Testament was oral tradition for years and years and years. And when it was finally written down, it was written down in Greek. It wasn't written down in Hebrew or Aramaic. It was written down in Greek. And so it was all oral tradition up until that point, except for the letters of warning that were written. And even the New Testament is filled with the letters of Paul. They're just letters. They're not even really gospels. So that to me is interesting. What was Nova Star? That's a great question. When I walked into the Garden Tomb, which is what the British Archaeology Society says is the actual site of the crucifixion and the Joseph of Arimathea's tomb, as I was walking down the street, I started weeping and crying, and I got nauseous. And when I went in there, I couldn't even look at the tomb. It was devastating. But when I went to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre an hour before, felt nothing. Felt absolutely nothing. Galilee, being on the shore in Galilee was really interesting because I was standing on the shore and I was like, this isn't where the beach was. And I realized the beach of the time was 10 feet higher and the water was like 10 feet down. What I was actually standing on, which was a rocky beach, was the seabed back in those days. So it was very, there were moments where I was like totally recognizing things, and there were moments where I just wasn't feeling. I'll tell you one that surprised me was Mount Sinai. Climbed all the way up, watched the sunrise from the top. Never felt it was the right place. But John probably wouldn't have been there, but because that's a Old Testament story. And even the archaeology societies today think that it's the wrong one because it was labeled by Constantine's mother, as was the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Your daughter turns 55. Happy birthday to your daughter. Anywho. Well, guys, we're coming to the end. Do we have any last questions before we wind up out of here? I'm going to go take my birthday weekend and, and do very little. And you guys all have a nice 3-day weekend celebrating my birthday. And I love you all. Thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing this night with me. And I appreciate the conversation tremendously. It makes me feel good to be here. It was a birthday present to me to actually have one tonight to talk to you guys. So you guys have a great weekend, and I will talk to you next Friday. See ya. Bye. Thank you for joining us at the Live Loving live stream. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and visit us at johnofnew.com.